four robbers jumped from a high tower in order to escape, but the next second they deployed their paragliders. The police officer who had been hit in order to chase them unexpectedly rushed toward a tourist who was preparing to parachute and jumped directly from the 100-plus story building. Luckily, there were protective mats on the ground. The officer only rolled a few times before continuing the pursuit. However, the four robbers were all top-tier experts. As soon as they landed on the hotel rooftop, they began changing their outfits. What surprised the police even more was that these individuals disappeared after entering the hotel. It turned out that one of the robbers was a hacker. To make the police lose track of their targets, while the robbers were changing their disguises, the hacker instantly hacked into the hotel's surveillance system and directly shut down all the cameras. At this point, even if the robbers passed by the police, they couldn't be recognized immediately. To identify the robbers more quickly, the police immediately turned on their body cameras. Then, they used AI to find faces without entry records. At this moment, the robber's boss had to step in. This person's code name was Shadow. Under his command, the robbers perfectly evaded the police's search, and as soon as they were out of sight, they would immediately change their disguises. To buy time for changing outfits, Shadow would intentionally create distracting noises. By the time the police followed the noise, the robbers would have already passed right by them, and the face they saw was no longer the same as before. At this moment, the police captain suddenly remembered that the person earlier was the robber with an earring. He immediately called his teammates to start searching, but because of the hacker's presence, these words had already reached Shadow's ears. He immediately instructed that person to start changing their disguise. The police never expected that in just a few seconds, the robber could transform from a thin young man into a tall girl. At this point, even if they swaggered past, the police would never recognize them. Just as everyone was at their wits' end, the hotel's performance started earlier than scheduled, because this was the only way to escape. The moment the golden tree rose, the four robbers immediately appeared and leaped onto it. They slipped away right under the police's noses. The next second, curses echoed through the police station. Because the stolen 500 million was in virtual currency, once they escaped, it would be impossible to recover. Just as everyone was at a loss, a retired police officer opened the door, and his name was Jackie Chan.